In year 3 and 4, welcome to another lesson of English and our favorite book, James and the Giant Peach. Before we can start, you need to make sure that you have your pencil, your workbook, and your brain is switched on. Do it now. Right, today's lesson is Monday, 1st of February, and our learning objective is to begin to use accurate punctuation within speech. So what we're going to be learning, we're going to look at direct speech and indirect speech and the difference between them. We're going to look at examples of punctuating direct speech correctly. We're going to look at some errors or mistakes and try to correct them together. And then we're going to move on to the independent task. So, first of all, what do you think direct speech is? And what do you think indirect speech is? Pause the video and have a go. Right, well done for trying. So direct speech is the reporting of speech by repeating the exact words of a character or speaker. So telling what someone said exactly in their words. So we've got an example here. She said, "I am happy." So I am happy is direct speech because that's what she said. Indirect speech, however, is when the speech of a character or a speaker is reported but the exact words are not used. Okay? She said that she was happy. We have reported what she said, but not without using the exact words that she used. Right. Which of the following is an example of direct speech? So, 1. Could I please have something to eat first? He asked. The centipede asked James to stop staring at him. 3. The earthworm said that he is a useful and much loved creature. Pause the video and have a go. Fantastic. The correct answer, let me get my pen. The correct answer is 1. Could I please have something to eat first? He asked. So this was could I please have something to eat first? That was the direct speech because those were the words of James. That's what he asked for. Which of the following is not an example of direct speech? So if it's not an example of direct speech, it must be indirect speech. And remember, indirect speech is when we report what someone has said without using their exact words. So 1, you have a lot of boots, James murmured. 2, you are a slimy beast, answered the centipede. 3, James declared that the creature didn't look like a worm of any sort to him. 4, we really must get some sleep, said the old green grasshopper. Stop the video, pause the video actually, and have a go. Fantastic. The correct answer is 3. James declared that the creature didn't look like a worm of any sort to him. There is no direct speech here. These are not exactly the correct words that James has used. So we reported what he said without saying exactly the words that he used. Okay, so remember at the beginning of the lesson, I've asked you what is direct speech. Let's see if you still remember what it is. So direct speech is the reporting of by repeating of a character or speaker. Pause the video and have a go. Well done if you remembered. So direct speech is the reporting of speech by repeating the exact words of a character or speaker. Right, so let's have a look at how we punctuate direct speech correctly. So we've got a line here. James murmured, "You have a lot of boots." Right. So the first part here, so this clause, is called a reporting clause. It tells us who said the direct speech. So James, he murmured. So it could be James said, James declared, James shouted, James whispered. Okay, sometimes we'll even have a adverb. So how he murmured, loudly, slowly. Describe. You would have an adverb describing how it was said, right? Next to it, so right after the reporting clause, we'll always have a comma. And right after the comma, we'll have our opening inverted commas. Whenever we write direct speeches, always start with a capital letter. Always use capital letter. So direct speech, you have a lot of booths because that's what he said. And then we use our punctuation. Right in here is a full stop. And then we close our inverted commas. So remember, reporting clause, comma, open inverted commas, capital letter, direct speech, punctuation, and then close inverted commas. Now it's your turn to have a go. So here is a line. The centipede shouted angrily, I said, turn out the light. Now I want you to pause the video and label the different parts of the direct speech. Well done, everybody. Let's see how you did. Okay, so the first thing we have, the centipede shouted angrily, and that's my reporting clause because it tells us who said the direct speech. It was the centipede and he shouted angrily. So here there is an adverb describing how he shouted. Straight after that, got my comma, and then I open my inverted commas. Got my capital letter. I said, turn out the light. So that's my direct speech because that's what centipede said. Okay, so that's the direct speech. Then I have my punctuation here. I don't have, it's not a full stop, but it's an exclamation mark. And then I close my inverted commas. Well done if you got it all right. Right. Which of the following has been punctuated correctly? 1. James asked, are you talking to me? 2. James asked, are you talking to me? 3. James asked, are you talking to me? Pause the video and have a go. Well done for trying. Number 1 is the correct answer. Okay, so we have our reporting clause, we have the comma, we have the open inverted commas, we have our capital letter and our direct speech, we have the punctuation, which is an exclamation mark, not exclamation mark, a question mark because there's a question, I apologize for that, and we have our close inverted commas. Here's another example. Right, these sentences all contain a direct speech, but they have not been punctuated correctly. So can you correct them? On a piece of paper or your jotter, write them down and then correct them. So 1, James asked, is that a glowworm? 2, he whispered, good night, old green grasshopper. 3, he called, turn out the light. 4, the centipede said, thank you, my dear child. Pause the video and have a go. Fabulous. Now, self-correct. So check your answers. Did you get them all right? Brilliant. Okay, so today we're going to read chapter 15 and 16. So I hope you have your book with you and you're reading along with me. Outside in the garden, at that very moment, Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker had just taken their places at the front gate, each with a bunch of tickets in her hand, and the first stream of early morning sightseers was visible in the distance, climbing up the hill to view the peach. We shall make a fortune today, Aunt Spiker was saying. I just look at all those people. I wonder what became of the horrid little boy of ours last night, Aunt Sponge said. He never did come back in, did he? He probably fell down in the dark and broke his leg, Aunt Spiker said. Or his neck, maybe, Aunt Sponge said hopefully. Just wait till I get my hands on him, Aunt Spiker said, waving her cane. He'll never want to stay out all night again by the time I've finished with him. Good gracious me, what's that awful noise? Both women swung around to look. The noise, of course, had been caused by the giant peach crushing through the fence that surrounded it, and now, gathering speed every second, it came rolling across the garden towards the place where Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker were standing. They gaped, they looked up with wonder, with their mouth open. They screamed, they started to run, they panicked, they both got in each other's way. They began pushing and jostling, so jostling, pushing and shoving each other, and each one of them was thinking only about saving herself. Aunt Sponge, the fat one, tripped over a box that she brought along to keep the money in and fell flat on her face. Aunt Spiker immediately tripped over Aunt Sponge and came down on top of her. They both lay on the ground, fighting and clawing and yelling and struggling frantically to get up again. But before they could do this, the mighty peach was upon them. There was a crunch, and then there was silence. The peach rolled, and behind it Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker lay ironed out upon the grass as flat and thin and lifeless as a couple of paper dolls cut out of a picture book. And now the peach had broken out of the garden and was over the edge of the hill, rolling and bouncing down the steep slope at a terrific pace. Faster and faster and faster it went, and the crowds of people who were climbing up the hill suddenly caught sight of this terrible monster plunging down upon them, and they screamed and scattered to right and left as it went hurtling by, so it went down really with great speed. At the bottom of the hill, it charged across the road, knocking over a telegraph pole and flattening two parked automobiles as it went by. Then it rushed madly across about 20 fields, breaking down all the fences and hedges, and in its path it went right through the middle of a herd of fine Jersey cows, and then through a flock of sheep, and then through a paddock full of horses, and then through a yard full of pigs, and soon the whole countryside was a seething mass of panic-stricken animals stampeding in all directions. The peach was still going at a tremendous speed with no sign of slowing down, and about a mile further on it came to a village. Down the main stream of the village it rolled, with people leaping frantically out of its path, right and left, and at the end of the street it went crashing right through the wall of an enormous building and out the other side, leaving two gaping round holes in the brickwork. This building happened to be a famous factory where they made chocolate, and almost at once a great river of warm melted chocolate came pouring out of the holes in the factory walls. A minute later, this brown sticky mess was flowing through every street in the village, oozing under the doors of houses and into people's shops and gardens. Children were wading in it up to their knees, and some were even trying to swim in it, and all of them were sucking it into their mouths in great greedy gulps and shrieking with joy. But the peach rushed on across the countryside, on and on and on, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Cowsheds, stables, pigsties, barns, bungalows, hay bricks, anything that got in its way went toppling over like a ninepin. An old man sitting quietly beside the stream had his fishing rod whisked out of his hands as it went dashing by, and a woman called Daisy Entwistle was standing so close to as it passed that she had the skin taken off the tip of her long nose. Would it ever stop? Why should it? A round object will always keep on rolling as long as it is on a downhill slope, and in this case, the land sloped downhill all the way until it reached the ocean, the same ocean that James had begged his aunts to be allowed to visit the day before. Well, perhaps he was going to visit it now. The peach was rushing closer and closer to it every second, and closer also to the towering white cliffs that came first. These cliffs are the most famous in the whole of England, and they are hundreds of feet high. Below them the sea is deep and cold and hungry. Many ships have been swallowed up and lost forever on this part of the coast, and all the men who were in them as well. The Peach was now only 100 yards away from the cliff, now 50, now 20, now 10, now 5, and when it reached the edge of the cliff, it seemed to leap up into the sky and hang there suspended for a few seconds, still turning over and over in the air. Then it began to fall. Down, 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 down. Smack! It hit the water with a colossal splash and sank like a stone. But a few seconds later, up it came again, and this time up it stayed, floating serenely upon the surface of the water. So that was chapter 15 and 16. So you task today, so you've got 2 activities, 2 questions. So the first one, you're going to highlight 5 examples of direct speech in chapter 15 and 16. So there are so many. So find 5 examples and write them down in your book. And then 2, you're going to write 5 sentences about 5 characters from our story. So it doesn't have to be about chapter 15 and 16. So choose 5 characters from the story, and then for each write a direct speech. Okay? Make sure you use the correct punctuation. So here is an example. Miss Spider asks, "How do you like your bed, James? Hard or soft?" So this is an example that of the direct speech of Miss Spider, something she asked James. So I've used my reporting clause, Miss Spider asked. I used my comma, my inverted commas, open inverted commas. I've got my capital letter, and I've got my direct speech, which is, "How do you like your bed, James? Hard or soft?" And I've got my punctuation mark, which is a question mark because it's a question, and then I closed my inverted commas. Right? Once you've written your 5 examples, then I want you to tick and fix your work. So check your work. Did you include a reported clause? Did you include a comma? Have you got open inverted commas? Did you use direct speech? Do you have the right punctuation? Did you use a closed inverted commas? And have you got your capital letter? Right, well done everyone. Once you have done your work, you can post it in Dojo. I look forward to seeing your work. Good job everybody. and I'll see you tomorrow.